Dr. David Smith from Sydney University is with us at the desk, and we are now waiting for Newt Gingrich to address his supporters, and already the crowd being warmed up to expect a very celebratory and perhaps aggressive message here.
I would say so. The aggressive message has worked very well for him so far. It was what prompted his turnaround in the last week or so, and I think that we will especially see quite a lot of that aggression directed towards Barack Obama.
We heard just a short time ago from Rick Santorum saying that he is staying in the race. How much of an impact did the fact that the two Ricks, Santorum and Perry, both pulled out of the race here in South Carolina last week? Withdrew?
Perry's withdrawal, I think, was very important. He gave an endorsement to Newt Gingrich. As well, some other fairly important Conservative figures either gave or came close to endorsing Newt Gingrich. Sarah Palin endorsed him, which I think could be quite important because she really symbolises the Tea Party in some way. I think that she is the figure that probably still has the biggest claim to leadership of the Tea Party. So both her and Perry endorsing Gingrich really seem to be giving a Tea Party mantle to him that so far no candidate has really been able to decisively claim. I mean, someone like Rick Santorum talks about it, but he doesn't really have that kind of small government emphasis that Gingrich is clearly going for at this point.
So given this result, we can expect him to strengthen his Conservative position?
I would say so, yes. I mean, we'll probably see more Conservative endorsements coming in. Chuck Norris endorsed him as well, who's something of a Conservative cultural icon. That's not one to be underestimated. I mean, I'm sure it's worth more than the endorsement that Dan Quayle gave to Mitt Romney earlier in the race. So what we might see now is Gingrich beginning to consolidate his position as the one true Conservative, although it's not going to happen easily. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party who blame Gingrich for derailing the last Conservative movement. That what he was really about when he was Speaker of the House wasn't small government, it wasn't conservatism, it was himself. He was all in favour of government as long as he was running it. And the breadth of the Conservative victory in the 1994 elections, in contrast to the scale of defeat at the hands of Bill Clinton in 1996 and then in midterms in 1998, is something that really stung Republicans at the time, and a lot of them really blamed Gingrich for it. They basically blamed his ego for derailing that Conservative movement that was in some ways the prototype Tea Party.
We heard from Mitt Romney earlier, and he shrugged off this result and is looking squarely to Florida, as you would expect him to do. So how important is it now for Gingrich to really consolidate this result in South Carolina before moving on to Florida, where it's unlikely that he will be able to get the better of Romney?
Yeah, look, it's very important that he has a good showing in Florida. Certainly he has to beat Paul and Santorum. He probably won't win there, but he really has to have a good showing, because if he has a bad showing, then this really raises concerns about his electability, because then of the first four contests, this will mean that South Carolina was his only good performance. We have to remember that both Iowa and New Hampshire, they weren't just defeats for him, they were bad performances. And that could really send a signal about his electability if he does badly in Florida. It would suggest he really can't perform that well outside of the Deep South. Even though Florida's further south, it's not culturally considered part of the Deep South.
Given this is a very conservative area, though, the fact that they attacked him on moral grounds in the previous week, we heard from an ex-wife and all sorts of questions asked about his personal life.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to have affected him too much here, so can we expect a change of strategy from his opponents in the future?
It's hard to say. I mean, the most devastating attacks didn't actually come from his Republican opponents. They came from an ex-wife and from the ABC network that showed them. Now, those people have nothing to lose from these kinds of attacks. I think
that makes good television.
Exactly. Republican opponents will refrain from direct personal attacks like that. They'll be happy when they occur, but they'll refrain from them. I mean, in the debate on Thursday night, when this was actually mentioned, Mitt Romney said, well, let's get to the real issues. but I think did mention how long he's been married to his wife, which was 42 years. Paul's been married to his for 54 years. I'm not sure how long Santorum's been married to his, but it's a hell of a...
Family obviously is right there in the middle, as he said.
That's right. So they will be happy for these attacks to be mentioned. They don't need to participate in these attacks themselves. The Liberal media is just having too much fun with these attacks on their own. The Republicans don't need to actually get involved.
Well, Newt Gingrich is now being welcomed onto the stage in Columbia in South Carolina to make his speech celebrating the result in the Republican primary. Looks like he's very slowly making his way through the crowd. Interesting to see the number of cameras there. It's a change from what we've seen in previous presidential races. Everyone's got their phone.
That's right.
Filming the event.
This is the first smartphone election.
You can't get away with anything.
You can't get away with anything. A
camera
smartphone dramatically increases the likelihood that no matter how small the occasion, if you do something embarrassing, that's going to get onto the internet. I saw after Obama had his singing performance the other night, singing a few bars of Al Green, there was actually a blogger very quickly found footage of Mitt Romney very awkwardly speaking "Who Let the Dogs Out?" Who at some kind of campaign event, and it was just absolutely cringeworthy to see. So yes, in the era of the smartphone,
given Romney's history of related stories with dogs, perhaps that wouldn't play so well in his corner.
Really bad. I mean, I think we can expect to see that clip recycled, actually.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we are standing by to hear from Newt Gingrich. He has won the South Carolina Republican primary, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, defeating the former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney and gaining victory in what has been a very dramatic turnaround from his earlier poor showings in Iowa and New Hampshire. Florida, of course, the next battleground, and this is one that we certainly are expecting Romney to win. Is there any chance that he could be undermined off the back of this result?
There is, yes. I mean, the Gingrich momentum could continue to build if enough hardcore conservatives and Tea Partiers decide he's the only chance of stopping Romney, and so we've just got to put aside our differences with Gingrich, we've just got to bite the bullet and go for him, then maybe, yes. And there has been some movement in the national polls as well as the South Carolina polls in that direction. So yes, there is a chance, and Romney has looked a bit weak in the last week. There was one commentator who said that the thing that he seemed to have going for him most was just this unshakable self-confidence, and that has actually taken a few hits.
Well, let's hear from Mitt Romney, who spoke about an hour ago, conceding defeat very briefly before looking ahead to Florida. Here's some of what he had to say as we await to hear from Newt Gingrich.
Tonight, I want to congratulate, of course, Speaker Gingrich and my fellow Republicans on a hard-fought campaign here in South Carolina. We're now 3 contests into a long primary season. This is a hard fight because there's so much worth fighting for. We've still got a long way to go and a lot of work to do. And tomorrow we're going to move on to Florida.
Mitt Romney,
I've said this before, and I firmly believe that this election is a battle for the soul of America. It's a choice between 2 very different destinies for America. President Obama wants to fundamentally transform our country. We want to restore to America the founding principles that made this country great and the hope of the earth.
Yeah, that's Mitt Romney speaking about an hour ago, conceding defeat but looking straight ahead to Florida. Dr. David Smith from Sydney University is with us, and he said it's going to be a long battle, a hard battle, a battle for the souls of America, and that really is the case, isn't it? This result for Newt Gingrich really means that this could be a very long, drawn-out campaign.
Yeah, certainly. If Romney had managed to win in South Carolina, the contest would have basically been over. So this definitely does drag it out, at least I would say until the Super Tuesday contests, which are more than a month away.
We heard from Rick Santorum before, that very long folksy speech talking about family, talking about his working class roots. When he did come out and announce that he was staying in the race, were you surprised?
I wasn't really surprised, although some of the things he'd said earlier in the speech, it seemed to be hinting at a graceful exit. But I wasn't really surprised. He does really have reason to believe that actually he would make a better candidate. He pointed out in the debate that he seems to have appeal in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, swing Midwestern states with declining manufacturing industries. Now, this is where the next election will be won. It's not going to be won in South Carolina, which will overwhelmingly go Republican, as it does every year. So Gingrich's ability to win there doesn't really mean much in terms of electability. And I think that Santorum is desperately hoping that people will realise this. And this is why he will tailor his message more and more towards being the candidate of these states. And this is why he's talking more about manufacturing, about the needs to make sure that jobs continue to stay in the United States. And I think he would have to be surprised that even with the endorsement of prominent evangelical leaders, so basically being established as the leader of social conservatism in the United States, that he was not able to get up to the level of Gingrich this time. But
it was notably absent in his speech, though, that he didn't mention God, which he has in many of his previous addresses.
That's right, he didn't. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe he thinks that the fight needs to shift to the economy now. Maybe he thinks that his previous tack was definitely going along as the social conservative candidate. Yeah. Maybe he feels now that his opening is running a little bit to the left of everyone else.
All right, well, obviously Newt Gingrich is building anticipation, perhaps doing a furious rewrite of his speech in light of what we've heard from Rick Santorum, but we are standing by to hear from him in Columbia in a short time.